Hello you and welcome to some kind of Fox content and welcome back to Will, a Wonderful World, where as you can see, we've got mail. Because we have 5 letters that we need to get into. Also, hang on, can I zoom out? Why can I not zoom out? I don't know.
Carlos, te extraño.
So for Alicia, we got Carlos.
老天爷，请赐予我勇气。
We got Promise with a new person here.
好想再见他一面。
And that somehow ties into Lee Wen's story. And then next to Jimmy, there's also a new person.
결코 이렇게 되진 않을 거야.
Life Unknown.
Porque siempre me pasa esto.
And Cell 28. Well, seems like we have a lot to do, so let's just get to it.
What's going on now? I've never seen a blacked out letter before.
Of course we have. There was one up next to Alicia. Let me explain. A letter will turn black when its precondition ceases to exist. So black letter means that the events inside the letter never happened. What is happening to Carlos might have something to do with his sister.
Do you mean that something's happening to his sister might have an impact on Carlos?
Yes.
But judging from their letters before, I don't think they're writing to us at the same time. Alicia is 9 years older than Carlos, but both of their first letters were from when they were 18 years old.
You're exactly right. That's why the events of Alicia's letter will have an impact on Carlos. What is happening to Alicia now happened to in Carlos' past.
Oh, I think I get it now.
By the way, we'll not be able to process the blacked out letters. As you can see, the other letter connected to it is also in a locked state. A locked letter means that other letters connected to it are blacked out. If you see a locked letter in the future, go and check the status of the letter connected to it. When you see a black letter, you may select it to obtain more clues. The clues are shown as the black dotted lines. I thought I was you there for a second. The letters connected by the dotted lines are the reasons the previous letter is blacked out. Knowing this, we can start by examining these letters first.
I understood, sir. Doggy, let me take a look at those letters then.
Oh, here's one small tip. Remember what happened in Carlos's previous letter? No. I think he was being sold at an auction.
If I remember correctly, it was about what happened in the auction house after he brought Yi there.
Right. Do you remember which ending you chose for him?
Yeah, I got the S rank. Of course, he saved Yi and also managed to escape himself.
Then what happened?
I don't know. Oh, he was taken away by the police, wasn't he?
Yes. You could go and check again. Because of the impact from some other events, the ending might have changed.
You mean that even with the same ending, the details of it could be changed at any time?
Yes. Such changes might happen in the non-ending parts of the stories too. It doesn't happen very often, but if you pay attention, you might find it interesting. Well, now I'm just more confused. At least we don't have any new messages. Okay, so what happened here? Cell 28. You said if I clicked on it, I would get more info. I ain't getting no info. Also, why can't I zoom out? Now I can. See, we got one up here with Alicia. There's a black one there. Why can't I? You told me to click on it. I can't click on it. Oh, was it this one I needed to click? Nope. Can't do that. Okay, well, so it seems like we have 3 letters to deal with in this one. We got new person, we got Lee Wen, and then we got Alicia. Let's start over on the left side here, and then we'll figure out this whole kerfuffle over here. Let's start with Lee Wen. Formula, note, and answers. And that ties into promise somehow. Okay, here we go. I'm excited to see a new person. After being hospitalized for gastritis, I learned from Mr. Wen that he had never blamed me for the photo incident. He and I were able to go back to how things were like nothing had happened. Occasionally, some fools in the school would still gossip about us, but I had learned to stop caring and pretend to not hear them at all. As Gaokao kept getting closer and closer, everyone, including those gossiping idiots, had to focus on the exam. Even my life had turned into a constant migration between classroom and home. I barely went to the tennis court anymore. Before we knew it, the final simulation exam was upon us. A sense of anxiety filled the entire school. Rumor had it that if anybody screwed up on the simulation exam, he or she would be required to stay in school for an intensive study session until 2 days before Gaokao. It was lunch break. Everyone was sitting in their own seats, trying to study for one last time. My phone suddenly buzzed. A text from Ying. Breaking news, Mr. Wen resigned last week, sob. I couldn't believe my eyes, and I turned around to look at her. She made a sad face. How could it be? The art class had been cancelled for the last 2 weeks. I'd also been hitting the books, so I didn't realize that I indeed hadn't seen him for a while until just now. When I went to my balcony, the lights had always been off in his apartments. I thought he had simply been going to bed early. The exam began in the afternoon. I looked at the paper in my hands, but all I could see was random gibberish that was jumping all over the place. All I could think about was Mr. Wen's resignation. Jimmy was really going at it. Half of his papers were hanging off of the side of his desk. A thought that had never occurred to me appeared in my head. Should I just copy it? But I had never cheated in my entire life. But if I didn't, I would have to stay in detention for extra study sessions after school. I didn't want to stay, I just wanted to go back home as soon as I could. I took a peek at Mrs. Yang. She seemed to be lost in her own thoughts. I made up my mind and decided to copy Jimmy's answers. I never knew that Jimmy was such a genius. No one ever paid much attention to him. I was writing down all of his answers when I felt a tap on my shoulder. Oh no. I'd been caught in 4K. A note had been left on my desk asking me to go to the tutoring room after school. After school, Miss Yang met me in the tutoring room. She said nothing about the cheating, she only asked me to stay for the study sessions. During the sessions, I kept staring at my phone, hoping that he would respond to my messages. Nothing. It was 11 p.m. when I got home. I knocked on his door softly. No response. I went to check his balcony. The lights were still off. I sat on the floor with my back against the door, thinking that I would be able to hear him if he came back in the middle of the night. 1 a.m. 2 a.m. It began to rain outside the window. 3 a.m. 4 a.m. It was almost morning. What should I do if I still couldn't find him tomorrow? I suddenly had a bad feeling. Would I never be able to see him again? Li Wen. And now, let's meet a new person. It's probably Miss Yang, right? This was the last simulation exam that I would be in charge of this year. And Gaokao, the real one, would be coming up next for my students. I unintentionally let out a sigh upon realizing this. The most stressful time of being a head teacher was the senior year. Time was always tight and the job was difficult. To make things worse, I still had to watch over these pubescent and rebellious teenagers. Some of them might be over 18, but mentally, they're all still just kids. Back in my school days, I had only heard about so-called young love, and I had barely seen any student couples. Nowadays, student couples weren't even something worth mentioning. Love triangles, gay relationships, teacher-student relationships, all kinds of stuff can happen nowadays. Well, I suppose I was already too old to understand kids these days. Their freaking TikTok and their music and their whatnot. All I could wish for right now was for them to graduate as planned so I never had to see them again. And to leave me a decent graduation rate. I need to go and take a good vacation after the exam. The exams had been handed out and everyone was ready to begin. The bell rang. I walked around the classroom and sat back in the chair next to the lectern. I'd been having trouble standing for too long these days. Maybe I'd been too tired, or it was just a natural part of getting older. The room felt stuffy. The cicadas outside the window were very noisy. I looked outside the window, lost in my thoughts. Somebody coughed loudly. How dare! My mind was pulled back. Li Wen looked a little nervous and her eyes were drifting all over the place. Very few students ever realized how good the view was from up here. I didn't go towards her directly. Instead, I walked out of the classroom and circled behind her like a lioness through the door in the back room. I realized that she was copying Jimmy's answers. I left a note. I told Li Wen to come and meet me in the tutoring room after school. I intended to talk to her about her cheating. I had no intention of reporting it to the school. I'd been teaching her since freshman year in middle school. She had been through a lot, so I had always looked out for her. While her grades were never the best, her character was beyond reproach. She was not that kind of student. She hadn't arrived yet. I stood in front of the window watching the clouds scattering over the track field. It might rain tonight. I remembered the last time I had seen V or W. Probably Mr. Wen? Li Wen? I don't know. It had also been raining that evening. Okay, so it is Mr. Wen. He had asked me to meet him in a coffee shop. He told me that he had gotten cancer and might not have much longer to live. He decided to resign from the school and leave Beijing. Maybe even leave the country, at least for a while. He asked me to keep it a secret and, if possible, to take care of all the relevant matters when he was gone. I didn't know what else to say, so I just asked him what he was going to do. I also contacted a doctor I knew and asked him if there were any other feasible treatment plans. Later he told me he had other things to take care of and said goodbye. I watched quietly as he walked away. As soon as he walked out of the coffee shop, I buried my head on the table and cried. I had always been so self-righteous and self-centered. I wanted to think of and do everything for him, yet I had never thought about or asked him what he would have wanted me to do. That must be why I had to watch him leave, over and over again. When we had been kids, our families lived next to each other. We had known each other for as long as I could remember. He was always playing alone in kindergarten. He was never bullied or isolated or anything like that. He was just too smart and too different compared to the other kids of his age. We had gone to the same elementary school, same high school, and same college. No matter where we were, he was always the best at what he did. And I had always been so proud to be his best friend. We would call each other by just one letter as our nickname. He was W, I was Y. After we had graduated from college, he went on to study abroad, and I started working. I really wanted to go with him, but I didn't feel that we were close enough to broach this idea, so we parted ways, and we began to lose touch once he met his girlfriend abroad. It was many years later when we finally met again. He had lost his fiancée, and his spirit had gone with her. His life had become a mess. I nervously suggested he come teach at my school. When he finally agreed to come, I was so happy something blossomed again in my heart. However, nothing more happened between us. We could be childhood friends who could talk about almost anything with each other, but we could never become more than friends. I never had the courage to tell him how I really felt, or how I had always felt. I was afraid that if I ever did it would have cost us our current relationship. I just wanted to stay beside him, talk with him, and laugh with him. Years had gone by. That 3-word spell that I had hidden inside my heart kept getting buried deeper and deeper. But it had never lost its power. It was just getting harder and harder for me to speak those words out loud. I felt myself slowly turning into an utter fool, but I couldn't help myself. Li Wen had finally come. I didn't ask her the reason for cheating, I just told her to come to the group study session. No matter why she had cheated, the study session could only help. But I suddenly realized I was being my usual self again. I was making decisions for her without asking her about it. I could have simply asked her to tell me why she had cheated. I suppose I just couldn't change myself, right? Yang Ying. Well, maybe you can't change yourself, but I can. Okay, so you're gonna be proud of Jimmy, Mrs. Yang, and then this, because then she gets pulled back into a frick. And what if you leave the note then? I think that might be it actually. Let's see. I took a peek at Miss Yang. She was looking outside the window and seemed to be lost in her own thoughts. What was she thinking about? Could it also be about Mr. Wen's resignation? Why the hell was I thinking about that? I was such an idiot. I stared at the paper as hard as I could, but I still couldn't focus. How pathetic. What should I do? If only there was something to help me focus on the exam. Cue the cough! The time for the exam soon ran out. I could already see myself sitting in the mandatory study session after school. I left a note. After school, Miss Yang came into the tutoring room as expected. Anything I can help you with? Well, Miss Yang, do you know why Mr. Wen resigned? Miss Yang gave me a look. I thought you were about to ask me about your grades this time. Take a look at your own paper. I picked it up. It was a disaster. I honestly don't know what is going through your kids' minds these days. Miss Yang gave me quite a tongue lashing. That sucked. Whoops. Just when my mind came back from wandering, the bell signaled the end of the exam. The bell signaling the end of the exam had just rung. Everything had gone well. A note had been left on my desk asking me to go to the tutoring room after school. After school, I came to the tutoring room as Li Wen had asked. I knew many senior students were going through a lot of pressure. But there were probably less than 10 students who would be willing to talk to their teachers about it. Nevertheless, I was thrilled that Li Wen had come looking for me. However, she was not here to discuss the pressure of the exam or going to college. Instead, she asked me about W's abrupt resignation. I was a little unprepared, but I still remembered my promise to him. I cleared my thoughts, took out her test from today and showed it to her. I had to let her know that Gaokao was right upon us. It was the only thing that mattered right now. She should not be thinking about anything else. Definitely not that. Her face turned red and white and red again. I could still feel the awkwardness in the air after she had left the room. I knew I might be breaking her heart, but I had to do it. W would have done the same. So that's not it that we are supposed to be doing. So what if you never get lost in thought? Maybe? Who was sitting by the window, and she was looking back at me too. She should be focusing on her test. I shook my head and signaled to her to get back to the test. She lowered her head. Half an hour later, the exam was over. And then with the note, with the tutoring, I knew many students, lots of pressure, but there with the 10 students, and nevertheless, with that, she was not there to discuss the pressure of the exam. She was asking about W. I was a little unprepared. I made up the spot, telling her, I made something up on the spot, telling her that he had gone traveling abroad. Her eyes lit up when she heard my lie. She asked me a few other questions about schoolwork before she eventually left. She was very polite and nice the whole time. But the moment she closed the door, I saw her turn around and run so fast that her hair was flying behind her. And then I saw her from the window running out of the school like an innocent and joyful little deer. For a moment, I thought I had just seen my younger self. That has to be an S rank. I took a peek at Miss Yang. She was staring right back at me. I was so startled that I almost jumped, and suddenly I could understand the questions on the exam again. Thank goodness. Whatever, I needed to finish the exam before worrying about anything else. If I screwed this up, I wouldn't be able to go anywhere after school. I left a note. After school, with the tutoring room, is there anything I can help you with? Well, Miss Yang, wisdom here. And then she gave me a look, and then him, and the travel abroad. For a month, Gaokao would be over by then. I was still hoping I could ask him for advice on what college to apply to. Although, as long as I could still see him, it would be okay. Meanwhile, I need to work hard for that one last exam. That has to be double S rank. There we go. More mail?
好想再见他一面。
Okay, so now you're 3 years after school and you probably haven't seen Mr. Wen since then. Uh-oh. Yeah, you know what? Let's stay on track here. 3 years had gone since I graduated from high school. College wasn't what I had expected it to be. In my imagination, college was supposed to be a place where ambitious and hopeful young people could better themselves before they entered the real world. Oh, what a fool I was. In reality, it was more like an amusement park. Most people never thought about their future. The professors barely cared whether anybody was even listening to their lectures. Rather than teaching the students, they usually cared more about how much funding they could get for their own private projects. Even the library didn't have many good books. Instead, it was more of a hotspot for young couples to go make out. I no longer even went to campus anymore. I might as well not even study at home. My friends were all super cool. Every few days they would host a party at my place. We did karaoke, cooked hot pot, and called for fried chicken deliveries. My room was always full of the smell of cigarettes and beer. A life like this had me lose the concept of time. It also helped with alleviating my feelings of loneliness. I lay down on my couch and slowly fell asleep. These days I had been sleeping on my couch more often than in my bed. Mr. Wen walked up to the couch and gently took my hand. I opened my eyes. I didn't go to campus today either. After graduating from high school, I never saw Mr. Wen again. I would often imagine that he would suddenly appear by my side, just like the day of the art exhibition. He would even show up in my dreams sometime. But he never did show up for real. Every time I asked Miss Yang about him, she would always stop herself before saying a word. I stopped asking after a while. I knew I would probably never know where Mr. Wen was, but I hoped that he was doing great. Because the early summer that we had spent together would always be the best season of my life. Okay. This? I rubbed my eyes. It was Miss Yang, not him. I must not have been totally awake. I climbed off the couch, went into the kitchen and helped Miss Yang with dinner. I was a repeating senior student this year. Because of a stomachache, I had to miss one of the exams during Gaokao. I was going to give up on college altogether, but Miss Yang spent a long time convincing me to give it another try. Concerned about me being all alone again, Miss Yang had moved in next door to help take care of me. She was living in the apartment that Mr. Wen used to live in. After Gaokao, Mr. Wen had vanished from my life entirely. I would often imagine that if I started to give up on myself, maybe he would come back into my life to stop me from ruining my life. I would be willing to wait for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, even longer, as long as he would come back. I'd been thinking about this so much that I even dreamt about it all the time. In the end, he was probably just a passerby in my life. Look, there's a tennis match. Miss Yang put the remote down. It was the 4D Gate Open. One of the finalists was a Chinese player. Father used to like him a lot. He would always watch his matches. Not only was he a tennis genius, he was also incredibly popular on the internet. He was young and handsome, came from a rich family and had a professional team handling his business off the court. Besides the astronomical prize money for his matches, his sponsorships were even more lucrative. Every time he went onto a talk show with his beautiful female assistant, he would receive more than tens of thousands in payment. Lots of people were always posting about him online. They adored him like he was a pop idol. Miss Yang kept staring at the TV while pouring some soy sauce on her noodles. Since you like tennis so much, have you ever thought about going into a career that has something to do with it? My chopsticks stopped for a moment. Maybe. Only a C? Okay, but isn't this what we had before? No, it's not. I had another dream. I climbed off of my couch. I changed into my exercise clothes, picked up my racket and headed out. I was a repeating senior because of a stomach, had to meet the exam. I was going to give up on college. With all of this, I'll just take a drink while we read all of this. There we go. Oh! We even get some art now, so this should be it. The light over the tennis court was maintained by some of the residents themselves. The dim light bulb kept making a buzzing noise. Is that Jimmy? I think that's Jimmy. 1, 2, 3. Or is that Li Wen? I think that's Li Wen, actually. Whoops. I just hit all 30 of the balls that I had, so I picked up the now empty basket. I walked over to the other side of the court and collected the balls before hitting them all again. No one else was on the tennis court. Ending unlocked. Mr. Wen disappeared. Separated in life. Achievement unlocked. Aww. All I could hear was the sound of the balls hitting my racket and then bouncing off the ground. That's also just a C. Okay, so this is not it, but nope. Okay. Okay, so it's not Mr. Wen first. Is it Dism? It has to be Dism. Climbed off the couch. I handed Mr. Wen a can of beer and got myself one. The evening news was on. It was about the wedding ceremony of a tennis player that was incredibly popular for a while now. A few days ago, he had just announced that he was retiring from tennis. He also announced that he was getting married to his longtime female assistant, who used to be a tennis player too. It was quite shocking, to be honest, when I saw the name of his fiancée on the TV screen. Mr. Wen. No. I'm not gonna even attempt, because I'm not good at pronouncing names. That couldn't just be a coincidence. Ever since I was old enough to remember, I had never seen my mother. Father had only mentioned her once, but I had never ever forgotten her name. I had always thought that tennis was just a hobby from when father was younger. He watched the games all the time, and he also had a yellow racket in storage. Under his influence, I started practicing tennis too, and the yellow racket was the first one I had ever used. Now that I thought about it, the only matches father had ever watched all had the same person in them. He wasn't watching the game, he was only watching mother. And that racket must have belonged to her too. I chugged the beer and looked to Mr. Wen, who was supposed to be sitting at the table. Except there was no one but me at the table. The beer can I had handed over was just sitting there. The hot pot in front of me was filled with overcooked vegetables and meatballs. The trash can nearby was stuffed with my yellow tennis racket and several bags of fried chicken that I had not even taken a bite of. I hunched over the table and burst out crying. Bitter memories. Remember the death of Li Wen's father. Achievement unlocked. How? Okay. Is it this? No. So it has to be something with this on top. No. So it can only be this? What? I've tried all of them. Huh. Uh-oh. God. Why do you keep toying with me? Why can't you just let me go? No, no.
Half-fuckled nightmare. Another nightmare. I had to triple down on nightmares. Well, what is going on with me? What's going on here? So I'll go downstairs and get some air.
But downstairs doesn't exist.
Well, he must still be asleep. His door isn't locked. Come to think of it, I have never even seen his room. Well, I'm going in.
Uh-oh. Oh, Jimmy's got a guitar!
Ah, he's not here. This room looks quite different from mine. It's pretty cool. It's got a guitar and shit. This red thing. It's called a guitar, I think. Does he know how to play the guitar? I sat down in front of the desk. A picture inside a metal frame caught my attention.
Complete 50% of the album. Private Eyes. Achievement unlocked.
This photo.
Aww. Is that Willie? And is that us?
There were two people and a dog in it. The person on the right looks a lot like myself. And the dog, it looks just like Willie. Although it is a little smaller. I can't see the face of the person on the left very clearly for some reason. Nevertheless, it looks like it's a boy. I feel like I've seen him before somewhere. Uh-oh. As I was scouring my memories for the face of this boy, I felt like an electric shock had suddenly pierced my brain. It hurt a lot. Then everything turned white in front of my eyes.
Look, Fluffy knows how to count. The die showed 4, and he barked 4 times. It's just counting. What's so special about that? Fluffy, go get my slippers. Look how smart my Fluffy is. You're so lazy that you won't even get your own slippers. Fluffy, go get my snacks. You're telling the dog to get your snacks? Do you have a hole in your head? Fine, I'll go get them for you. Here they are. Did you eat some of my snacks? You will come to regret such actions, you fool. Who would want to eat your... Yes, I hate that stuff. Then why are there only 4 pieces when there were 5 earlier? It is not just Fluffy that knows how to count. I can count too. It must have been Fluffy. See, there's some incriminating dog hair right there. Do not frame Fluffy. Fluffy would not do it. And you know what I just noticed? I saw you touch your head just now. You always do that when you are lying. I'm on to you. What? Do you trust Fluffy more than me? So, what will it be? Will you choose honesty? I like Fluffy. As long as I have Fluffy, I don't care about you at all. Idiot, Fluffy can't be with you forever. A dog's life is much shorter than ours. I, on the other hand, might actually be by your side until the end here. You're lying to me again. Fluffy, you're going to stay with me forever, right? See? The dog told me. Wake up. Wake up! Why did you fall asleep in my room? I don't freaking know. Did I fall asleep? What happened to you? Are you not feeling well? I don't know why, but I suddenly want to bawl my heart out. I don't want to read those letters anymore. When I realized the humans have all been doomed to their horrible fates because of me, I just couldn't. Fine, I understand. Even though I couldn't say anything, Willie seems to know exactly what is bothering me. It's okay, don't cry, you have done a great job. I mean it. I'm the one who has been acting horribly. But don't worry, you won't remember any of this soon. Hi, who are you? Oh, that was very ominous. Well, bye.